This is the start of the Daggerboard trunk. It's a couple pieces of plywood that are cut to a certain shape. They're glassed on the side that's facing up, and then the underside, or this is actually the outside, is epoxy coated. But the side with the tape is glassed. That's the inside of the trunk. And then this is the first part of the assembly. It's got two cleats, or well, they have another name for them. I can't think of it at the moment. But anyway, these are also glassed on the inside faces. Though that comes in the kit pre-glassed like that. And they're overlong. They'll get cut off later. But they're just being glued and clamped in place right now. Nothing particularly fancy, but aligning it correctly is important since the Daggerboard has to slide in and out of here. Then once that's cured, I glue on this other side. Daggerboard trunk is now fully assembled. In between gluing those trunk logs onto the first side, the first side I glued is the bottom side. And once those were cured, I coated both sides with another coat of epoxy and let that cure. And then this morning that was cured so I could assemble the final side. It's aligned with these nails, which help make sure it's in the right place, and then glued with epoxy. Nothing fancy. These excess length of these trunk logs will get cut off when all is said and done, so they'll be flush with the top and the bottom of this. Take a look inside. I cleaned up the fillets best I could, which was pretty well, so there's no mess inside or anything. But there's the inside of the Daggerboard trunk as it stands now. The Daggerboard trunk is all glued up, and I've trimmed the trunk logs at the top and bottom. They're flush and square. Cleaned up the sides a little where there was some epoxy. And then this is ready for installation, but it won't happen until the main bulkheads are done and in the boat, because this installs at the forward edge of the main bulkhead. The next step on the Daggerboard is to glue in these cleats at the top. They're just 3/4 inch spruce cleats. Some alignment blocks nailed temporarily to the top to align these exactly with the top of the plywood, and epoxied in place. They're overlong, so they'll be cut off flush later. Before I glued those in, I rounded the leading edges of this Daggerboard trunk with a router, stopping 3/4 of an inch from the top. That's the edge that'll face forward in the storage area below the foredeck, so it wants to be nice and round. So that's the Daggerboard trunk as of now. The Daggerboard trunk is finally installed after about 1 million little prep steps to kind of assemble this thing. I elected to put it in a little earlier than it said. It's supposed to be coated with epoxy once more on these visible surfaces. I didn't see why that couldn't wait till it was in the boat. I wanted to get it in because aligning the mast step, the top part of the mast step, is reliant on this. And it's just one of those things I wanted to get in the boat. It helps stiffen that bulkhead as well. To put it in, there's alignment marks already in the boat, and you can just see a couple of them forward of it. So I aligned it with those marks. They're also on the bulkhead. You can't see them, but they're there. And put in these little glue blocks, excuse me. There's 3 on each side. And once I was happy with all that, I did all the usual prep and glued this Daggerboard trunk in place. It's glued against the bulkhead, and it's glued to the hull. And later there's going to be very healthy fillets holding this in. I don't know if it gets glassed anymore or not. We'll find out as we move through. Before I installed it, I drilled a 1/2 inch hole through the bottom, and that'll allow me to put a router bit in there and trim the opening from the underside of the hull. So that's going to cure up, but it's pretty stable the way it is, and I'm happy to have that in. Those cleats there, the foredeck will get glued to those when it gets installed. Helps support the foredeck and also stabilizes the Daggerboard trunk.